Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lisa Jacobson. I'm president of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy, and it really is my pleasure to be here with all of you and a number of BCSE members to talk about our ambitions for COP29 and what we're doing around the world to accelerate the clean energy transition. The Business Council for Sustainable Energy is a broad-based trade association with energy sector members, associations, and companies in the energy efficiency, natural gas, and renewable energy sectors. We are all committed to decarbonization, and we've been a part of this process since the very beginning. In fact, when our organization was established back in 1992, the board sent its first delegation to the Rio Earth Summit. We knew at that time, just as we know today, there are commercially available technologies that we can deploy that will improve the lives of millions, well, billions of people around the world, enhance their access to energy services, modernize energy services for communities, improve their resilience, and very importantly, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's what we'd like to talk to you about today. We're going to hear from a number of speakers across the energy transition landscape, and I will introduce them. And I'd also like to share a little bit of information about our hopes and expectations for the second week of the COP. But I'm going to do that after we first hear from them about why they are here and what they're doing on the ground to support people and communities with energy services that also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So we're going to hear from Bob Hinkle, founder and president of Metris Energy, Paul Lau, General Manager of the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, also known as SMUD. Gosh, I don't see Stacy. Stacy is just coming. Okay, great. Stacy Ettinger, she's with the Solar Energy Industries Association, and Mike Train, who is their Chief Sustainability Officer with Emerson. So first, I'd like to turn to you, Paul. Please share with us a little bit about your first week's experiences here and how SMUD is helping its customers reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve their resilience and security of their energy systems.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. And first of all, thank you so much for the Business Council for Sustainable Energy for putting together such a wonderful leaders in terms of a clean energy transition. And then I think this first week at COP has been really inspiring. I mean, this is my second time at COP. And every time I come to COP, I feel inspired by really all the actions, not just what the U.S. is doing, but really what all the countries around the world is doing in helping this clean energy transition. So maybe just a little bit about SMUD, for those of you who don't know what SMUD is. SMUD is the Sacramento Municipal Utility District. We are a publicly owned utility that serves California, Northern California, specifically Sacramento, which is the capital of California, which is a state, I think, the fifth largest economy in the world. We've been around for 75 years. We're a local, public-owned, nonprofit utility that serves our communities. And our rate is one of the cheapest in California, and we have the highest customer satisfaction. One of the things that we've done in terms of advancing to a clean energy future, our board 2020, along with the city and the county of Sacramento, said that climate change is one of the biggest threats facing mankind, and we need to do everything we can to advance to make sure that we remove carbon and tackle climate change. So 2020, we have developed, I think, one of the most ambitious clean energy plans in the nation. We have vowed to completely remove all our carbon from our power supply by 2030. And then also, we're going to double down on both the building and transportation sector. So our plan is negative 1 million metric tons of carbon by 2030. And we're going to commit about $4.7 million to do that. So very happy to report we've been making really, really good progress. We added like about 300 megawatts for the last couple of years. We have another 800 that is on its way about 2026. And then by 2030, we would actually have probably about triple the amount of renewables that we have today. We already have doubled down our energy efficiency methods, the energy efficiency goals that we've been reducing our load through energy efficiency about 1.5% per year for the last 6-7 years. And then the other things that we're really keen on doing is that when we look at our plan, extended state technology can only get to us to about 90% of the way there. So we're also working with partners around the world in terms of bringing new technologies like carbon capture and sequestration and long-duration batteries to making sure that when you have large amount of renewables coming on, we have a way to integrate that and making sure that our grid is safe and reliable, and also making sure that we can actually integrate as much as the renewable that's coming online. So I think there's two guardrails that we told our community on this plan. We're going to need to maintain our world-class reliability. We have made a vow that we'll not raise rates more than inflation, but more importantly, we want to make sure no community gets left behind. So I said, it's been wonderful to be here for the first week at COP because it's so inspirational to hear all the world leaders talk about how are they going to tackle climate change and all the efforts that's being done for this clean energy transition. So again, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Bob Hinkle, again, founder and executive chairman of Metris Energy.
Thanks, Lisa. So Metris Energy is a proud member of the Business Council for Sustainable Energy. And our first week here at COP has been fantastic, as Paul was saying, a lot of energy. And particularly coming from the US and seeing all the activity and energy from the private sector businesses that are still very engaged and working towards the targets of the Paris Agreement. Organizations like Paul's that are really leaders at the subnational level as well, cities and states. So that's been really inspiring and great to be a part of, and is one of the main reasons that we're here. Just some background on Metris Energy. Metris is a developer, financer, and an owner of larger scale energy efficiency and sustainable energy projects. We finance and implement projects for large commercial and industrial customers, colleges and universities, and hospitals. We finance projects through an energy as a service solution where we fund 100% of the upfront cost of a project, own the sustainable energy assets, and then bill customers based on the performance of a project. And we see that as a key way to unlock really and have capital flow into projects where you can match up very closely the benefits that are very tangible to customers from sustainable energy projects with the financing solution. So that's a way that we're looking to unlock and mobilize private capital here and really get to bridging the gap between the financing needs and the deployment of projects.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to ask Mike Train, Chief Sustainability Officer with Emerson, to share his perspectives.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pleasure to be with you, and thanks, Lisa and everybody from the BCSE for all that you do. Emerson is a global automation company. We serve all sorts of industries, power generation, chemicals, life sciences, metals and mining, the battery value chain, and especially pleased to be involved with a lot of the new solutions that are now coming into the marketplace, inclusive of carbon capture activities, biofuel, biogas activities, and the entire hydrogen ecosystem, whether that's a manufacturing of hydrogen, moving it, or use cases for hydrogen. I am inspired as well as my fourth COP visit. I see the progress every year. New projects have come online. They do inspire us to take the next steps. And again, the automation, digitalization are playing key roles in the ability to maximize the efficiency that we can get from these investments. There's still a lot of work to do on the installed base or existing assets that are out there. There's still a lot of work to be done on decarbonizing those assets and using digitalization on that. But these new assets, and maybe some of the things that Bob and others are involved in, they're going to be born digital from the front, from the very beginning. And being able to really deploy and harness that information, those data sets, to really maximize the impact is what we're all about. I also have enjoyed kind of meeting some of our policymakers and trying to bring to them some of the examples that are out there, some of the things that we may need from them to help kind of create the markets that we're interested in. There's been a lot of positive conversation on that this week across the different events at COP. So pleasure to be with you again today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. And next, we're going to hear from Stacy Ettinger, Senior Vice President for Supply Chains and Trade with the Solar Energy Industries Association.
Thanks very much for having me here. I apologize for being late. Let me talk a little bit about what SEIA is, just to set the stage. So we represent in the United States the solar and energy storage sectors. We have over 1,200 member companies. That includes manufacturers, developers, EPCs, financiers, project management, technology companies. We also our members serve all sectors when it comes to deployment of solar and storage, so the utility sector, the commercial sector, and residential. We are very excited to be here today. This is very important to us. It's our first time at COP, and we are working towards developing relationships or continuing to develop relationships to diversify our supply chain and to partner with like-minded companies and associations and NGOs as we look to grow solar and energy storage globally.
Thank you very much. So for the next 10, 15 minutes of our press event, we would like to accomplish two things. First, I would like to share with you a little bit about what we want to see out of the negotiations while we're here, but then we're going to drill down into 4 areas that are really critical to closing the gap to accelerating the energy transition, and they are finance, workforce, technology, and supply chains. So first, from the Business Council for Sustainable Energy side, you hear a really good example of the sets of industries and the leadership that they are providing in the communities that they work in from our panelists. When we come to the global stage, we're looking for many similar things as we are when we're working with a household or a local business. We need that partnership, and the partnership with governments in particular. So we need clear rules that will help us work with those individuals making energy or other infrastructure decisions and help them know that if they choose a path to decarbonization, they're going to be supported overall. And what does that support entail? It entails, the opportunity and access to affordable clean energy services. And so for the COP, we very much want to see those markets signals sent throughout the globe. And at this COP in particular, where we're focused on reaching a new agreement on finance, we want to see it match the public-private partnership model. What do I mean by that? We want it to be reflective of the true needs of the challenges we face to provide energy services around the globe and do it in a greenhouse gas supportive way. That means that we are doing it with low and zero carbon technologies. So for the agreement that we hope to see by the end of the week, we wanted to focus on the trillions. That is really what is required, and we know if we work with the private sector, we will be able to aspire to achieve those goals. Second, we want to see technology and the innovations in technologies front of mind, especially as we're thinking about the next round of NDCs. And for the Business Council in particular, we're very pleased that last year in Dubai, a whole set of important technologies were highlighted and really a roadmap for those countries that are thinking about their energy plans in the year ahead. Energy efficiency, renewable energy, hydrogen, other decarbonization technologies. They were really important goals set, and over 120 countries adopted them. And then the entire COP adopted them in the agreement itself. Here at this COP, it's really exciting to see the focus on grid modernization and energy storage. So just yesterday, we saw countries adopting important goals to achieve deployment of those critical technologies. So this COP in Baku is going to be very important to the business community. It sets the signal of where to invest, and we will take that to our jurisdictions where we work. So now, I'd like to turn it quickly to each one of our panelists to talk about some of the areas that I highlighted where we really see need for work and partnership together. So Paul, I'd love to hear from you. Please select any of the areas to talk about that you would like.
So Lisa, what you said is so important. I think it's so important for the government to send a clear signal where they're leading, where the technology needs to go, and how the finance is going to be supported for those industries. So for SMUD, we actually came to COP last year and heard about how the world is really embracing carbon capture and sequestration as a viable pathway to get to zero carbon. And that is particularly true for SMUD because when we actually look at our power portfolio, we said existing technology, utility scale wind, solar, geothermal, could get us 90% of the way there. To get 100%, we need new technologies like carbon capture and sequestration. We need new technologies like hydrogen, and we need new technologies like long duration battery. So, from COP last year, we're able to actually, you talk so much about public-private partnership. It's so important to do that. So after we got back from COP last year, we were able to actually secure a grant from Department of Energy with Calpine, so they can actually turn one of their 550 megawatt plant into a carbon capture plant. But it'll come online by 2028, 2029. So SMUD now, we're in a public, federal, public, and private partnership, to take the output of that plant. And so that would actually help us to get to zero carbon by 2030. At the same time, we also receive grants from the state and the federal to try new technologies like long duration batteries. So we have a partnership right now with ESS to put in the next generation of batteries that would actually give you 8 to 10 hours, that would help the grid integrate more renewables, but at the same time give us resiliencies and also capacity for the system itself. So those are the two things that I think is so important. The reason I didn't talk, I forgot to mention earlier, one of the main reasons why we're here at the COP is really to invite partners, business partners, government entities, NGOs, that truly believe that we need to decarbonize and get to zero carbon as quickly as possible. So this, for SMUD, coming here is an open invitation to the world to come partner with us. In fact, me and Bob actually talked about yesterday, we might be actually doing some business with this company to actually help, how do you advance some of the energy efficiency and some of the measures for the industry sector. So some of those hard to reach areas. So that's one area that I'm particularly excited about. And then the second area that you talk about, really workforce. When we actually put our plan together, we had about 25 community meetings, working in the community, asking people what they want to see in that plan, and do they understand the plan, what's the most important to them. And after the plan was, we actually had a community meetings, we had about 93% approval rating from the community. But the thing that we heard loud and clear from them, especially from under-resourced communities, is what is it in it for them? We need to really double down on focusing on inclusive economic development, making sure we attract businesses that comes to those under-resourced communities, but more importantly, have jobs that goes to those under-resourced community. So we have actually, since last year, we have partnered with the union, local training agencies, the universities, to really think about putting scholarship programs together and internship programs together and do the recruitment from the under-resourced communities. So we're giving scholarships, for them to be the next generation of EV battery installers, rooftop installers, but also the next generation of line workers that build infrastructure that's so critical to support this clean energy transition. So we're going all fronts, and we're getting a really tremendous response from the community, because we want to say, what we want to tell them is that we will not leave you behind. In fact, we want to make sure that you're part of the solution and you're on the table when we're talking about this clean energy transition.
Thank you, and it's wonderful to hear that we're doing some business here at the COP. So, Bob, I'd like to turn to you next, please.
Thanks. So I'm going to pick up on your point about finance, and maybe more just stepping back at a macro level. The Climate Policy Initiative estimates that between now and 2030, we're going to need between $5 to $12 trillion annually of investment in climate-related projects. Obviously, that's a huge amount to mobilize and a lot of gaps to fill in terms of getting towards projects implemented. Now, from a financing perspective, I see really three key areas that we need to address. First, it's more looking internally at the way projects are being developed and the way that businesses and building owners are evaluating projects. What often happens with sustainable energy projects is that the way that they are valued in an investment decision-making process significantly undervalues the benefits of all these projects. Often for projects like energy efficiency, people focus just on the energy savings, but there's a tremendous amount of other benefits that are realized from these projects on the operational side, on the health side, on the productivity side, and on resiliency. And when investment decisions are made and the very real savings that are received on these other non-energy savings areas are not included, it means that very good investments that capital could flow to right now are not getting done. So the result is that there are trillions of dollars of energy upgrades out there that can save energy, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, help with resiliency, and generate productivity benefits and health benefits that do not require technology innovation, that really capital is ready to flow to if they were evaluated differently. So that is in terms of how businesses and organizations are evaluating those opportunities. But I think the financing community also has some work to do in how those investments are being presented to customers. And that means taking a look at really what matters to building owners and customers. So that means matching up and structuring financing so that the financing is much more tailored to the outcomes that matter for customers. So on a lot of projects in the past, historically, it's just a traditional loan where someone is paying principal and interest to get an energy upgrade done. But if you match those projects to outcomes like the delivery of sustainable cooling and heating, having that available, if you're working with a hospital and you focus on a cooling and heating project, but more bill and measure based on the quality of air that's going into the rooms where patients are treated, those are outcomes that matter and I think underscore and really amplify the benefits of sustainable energy projects that are needed to get work done. More broadly, and looking at blended finance, which I know is a topic here, there's a lot of opportunity. Metris as a financer is evaluating different opportunities to use blended finance in our projects. What we see as being most helpful is really solving some of the underlying credit challenges with projects, where if government agencies, international donors were to provide more loan guarantees to help backstop the credit on projects, I think that would help mobilize private capital in a significant way to get projects moving.
Thank you very much. Mike, would love to hear from you next, please.
Well, I think it's obvious I should talk about the technology side, but I am very supportive of some of the comments. Obvious that I should talk on the technology side, but very supportive of some of the other comments. I think the workforce development comment is an excellent item that Paul mentions there. You know, we need to attract talent to these spaces and come help us invest and solve the problems that we have across the entire spectrum of energy transition and circularity and some of the other things that we're working on. We need to attract the youth to these areas. I think we need to empower them. We got to give them permission and support them as they try to make things happen. On the technology side, just a couple of example areas I'd like to kind of reference. On storage seems to be, I think for now, a number one priority on what we're trying to do. We have had a lot of renewable assets join our grids and distribution systems. It's creating havoc. I'm sure Paul could talk to that a little bit about how the daytime and the nighttime operates if you're trying to run a grid appropriately. It's been wonderful. We've been involved with several of the large battery systems to get those electrons on and off of the grid, being able to have the remote control capabilities around those things. And, you know, those are starting to reach sizes of, you know, 750 or 1 gigawatt, 4 gigawatt hour kind of sizes. And again, really important. I think we've got the technologies figured out and we can move fast in that space and hope to see some more of that as we go forward. We're also involved in a pretty novel project where hydrogen's being used as the storage mechanism for renewables in more of a seasonal kind of conceptual, using salt caverns as storage. The idea there is to have hydroelectric, solar and wind as front ends, electrolyzers, which you'll hear a lot of discussions about, to take water and turn that into a hydrogen stream, store it in geologic storage, and then dispatch it when you want to use it, put it back through a turbine and turn it back into electrons. Pretty amazing project. It's underway. It's in the state of Utah. But I think very inspiring for some of the things that we're hopeful that we can deploy over the medium term in terms of some activities on the storage side. The other place we spend a lot of time in my company is with the hard-to-abate industries, the industrial users, steel, cement, some of those spaces, you know, where they create a lot of the emissions in the world today. It's been encouraging that through investment and action, we're seeing a lot of those companies now implement hydrogen or dual fuel type of fuel streams that they're anticipating will be their pathway to still get the high heat they need to do their work, but be able to do that with ultimately a green hydrogen molecule to make that happen. So a lot going on in different spaces. We love highlighting these things. I think it is inspiring. I think the engineering activities around the world are awesome. We need to support some of our small or new to the world innovators. We've got to create some market signals for them so that they make it to the scaled opportunities. But I'm encouraged by what we see across really all of the different challenges in energy transition today.
Thank you very much, Mike. Stacy, want to hear from you next, please.
Great, thank you. I'm going to focus on supply chain issues and for the United States and I think for many countries, resiliency is key. And, what does that mean? I mean, for us, when we're talking about supply chain issues and resiliency in the U.S. market, some of the things we're looking at is how can we fill some gaps that we still have that we're working towards filling, and ingot and wafer manufacturing domestically is certainly a priority for us. Critical minerals as well, and it's one reason what we're doing here, again, as sort of Paul mentioned, is sort of inviting partners into our discussion. How can we work with you and our mutual self-interest to fill those gaps and work together? In addition to sort of growing the relationships, I also want to say that the U.S. is poised also to be a provider, a supplier. I expect that early next year we will become potentially an exporter of solar modules. We are manufacturing enough modules in the United States. We will soon be manufacturing a sufficient number of modules to supply domestic demand. And at that point, we become ourselves a potential supplier to our trading partners in other countries. So that's something I think that we are excited about and something that we are talking about. Again, on a larger scale, it is looking at where we can work with our trading partners. One of the things that Mike mentioned as a priority is energy storage. And energy storage, in many ways, implicates this sort of critical minerals issues. Where are those minerals being sourced? Where are they being processed? And how do we improve our own domestic production and processing of critical minerals, but also where can we look to our trading partners and our trusted allies to also work with us in that regard. So again, I'm very bullish about where we're going domestically in terms of building resiliency, but also working with our trading partners, again, as a supplier and also as trusted partners.
Well, thank you very much to all of you. And, as our panel has clearly showed, we know that we need a big tent of clean energy solutions to achieve our Paris Agreement goals and to keep 1.5 degrees alive. Businesses in the BCSE delegation are deploying energy efficiency and clean energy solutions every day, and we need that big tent to reduce energy demand, accelerate the energy transition, and keep global temperatures where they need to be. Business voices at this COP and in all the COPs going forward are essential to provide insight from the real economy on what policies work to catalyze investment and deployment. It's really been a pleasure to be with you all today, and I thank you for participating in our session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.